Hey, what's up? So we're on to the Saints today. The Saints went 13-3 last season. First thing we got to talk about is Drew Brees and how stupid he is. But yeah, right now it seems like the team is forgiving him since he's kind of done some stuff to like make up for what he said. So right now I'm gonna believe that the team is rallying around him, and if the team crumbles this season, I also wouldn't be surprised though. So yeah, all right, let's get into it. Last season, I saw a lot of things from them. First off, being Drew Brees when he's playing is still always finding people open receivers. Just makes it look easy because he knows who to throw the ball to, and whenever he throws the ball to someone, they're almost always wide open because he knows who's going to get open before the play even starts somehow. And that's helpful. But even if guys aren't wide open, he's willing to put the ball in places that it needs to be so that players can make catches, which is also amazing. Next up, Taysom Hill is such a fun player that so many teams could use a man like, but the thing is that Sean Payton is the head coach, and he's one of the only head coaches that is smart enough to realize how to use a Taysom Hill like player in proper ways. And it really is weird that so many coaches are unable to do this, but not only bring a player on the field to use as a lot of teams got this wrong with a wildcat too. Like they bring a player on the field to run the wildcat, but then they only do one thing with him, and it makes it so obvious what they're going to do once this one player is on the field. But the thing that Sean Payton has done over the past 2 years with Taysom Hill here is created a player that you never know what he's coming onto the field to do. And that is really a weapon that they used really well. And the way they used him is just really smart and ahead of the times, really. I don't know what else to say because I'm sure eventually other coaches will catch on, but not for a while at least. Next up, Texans and Saints. The first game of last year was a crazy game. It was a really good game, and wow, it shot. I just keep forgetting about it. Like since it was the first game of the season, it didn't have huge meaning as of them, but it really was a good game to start the year off with. Monday Night Football. It was an awesome one. Deontay Harris got a punt return touchdown. And there's not many of those nowadays, and Deontay Harris actually had a really good season returning kicks of all types. So unlike other teams, I can say that this team has their kick return department locked down by this man, and that's good. Special teams is important. Alvin Kamara is an awesome running back, but he barely got mentioned last year because of all the injuries he dealt with, excuse me, and I'll talk about that more later. Uh, Play design on fake jet motion to Kamara as a threat, where they fake jet motion with Kamara as the jet man, and Teddy Bridgewater was under center, and then they fake the jet motion to the right, fake the handoff to Kamara with the jet, and throw it back to the left with an basically empty backfield because Kamara was in the slot to the left, and it's just play design like that sticks out to me that makes Sean Payton such a good head coach. Next question here is, how is Ted Ginn still productive? He was 34 last season. He's 35 this season, and I'm pretty sure he's still on the team. Absolutely insane to me. Don't know how he's still having like any sort of production at that age at the receiver position. With, I realize people like Larry Fitzgerald are, but you look at Larry Fitzgerald and Ted Ginn, they are not the same players. Michael Thomas has great hands. I can't believe how long he's already been in the league. It seems like Michael Thomas like just came into the league, but I'm pretty sure last year was year 4 for him. This year, year 5. If last year wasn't year 4, last year was year 3, and that still seems like a lot for him. He's been around for a while now, and just crazy to me how long he's been in. But he's always been such a good player too, which is crazy. Didn't expect that coming out from him. I mean, I barely even knew the name when he was coming out of college, to be completely honest. Uh, Also, I think he's better than Devontae Parker, but I think it was a Twitter exchange. I think the Devontae Parker mentioning that he gets 400 targets a year or something like that was absolutely hilarious. That was very funny, and I think Devontae Parker won the Twitter war in that department. I love watching Demario Davis play. I don't know why. Just really when he's on the field, he's a cool figure to watch. Maybe it's because he actually wears arm sleeves from the Sleeves brand that I love so much. That's one reason. He's pretty cool for that. Cam Jordan also whooping offensive linemen. He had a great year this year. I mean, I think they said he's a 4-time Pro Bowler prior to last season. If he made the Pro Bowl again last season, I wouldn't have been surprised. He's a really, really dominant edge rusher. Von Bell, big playmaker, but I found out that that's not a big deal, which I'll talk about later in the video. I would love for someone to tell me how the Cardinals and Saints game last year, is a CBS game. Now, my understanding of how the NFL contracts with television stations work is the Monday night games, ESPN's game, so that could be any matchup that they deem as whatever they want to throw on Monday Night Football. Thursday Night Football, the same thing. They can throw whatever matchup they want on Thursday Night Football. And then Sunday Night Football, whatever matchup they want again, but usually they try to find the best game of the week and they can throw. So all the night games are whatevers. But the Sunday games, I always thought if it's an AFC contest, CBS will get it. If it's an NFC contest, Fox will have it. And if it's a cross-conference game, then it could go to either station based off balancing or whatever. But how the heck, when I thought that, so an NFC game being Saints-Cardinals, how did that game not get on Fox and end up on CBS? I just don't get it. I would love if someone could explain to me how the television contracts actually work, because I don't understand that. That has nothing to do with the Saints. I just don't get that, and I would love to know more about it because I'm interested in every facet of football, basically. They got solid production from their backup running backs when Alvin Kamara was out, being Latavius Murray and I think, Dwayne Washington, their third running back. He didn't have as many big plays, but obviously Latavius Murray played well when Kamara got on the sideline for a while. Taysom Hill threw a beautiful back shoulder throw to Mike Thomas at one point in the season, which almost gives me a little too much confidence that he may actually be able to play the quarterback position. Not really. I just didn't know he had that throw in him. I was really impressed with that one throw. Marshawn Lattimore's still locking up number one in wideouts, which is good for the Saints. Marcus Williams also, I think he's forcing a ton of turnovers. And then I write great safety duo once again, talking about Marcus Williams and Von Bell, but that was ruined by what I found out. The NFC South games are always wild. Jared Cook is great, but he's an old man, so no one seems to care. I can't believe it. Jared Cook, honestly, maybe like a top 5 to 10 tight end in the league, but like just because of how long he's been in the league, it's like, no one really cares about him playing well. The Saints have got so many weapons. If Jared Cook is doing well, whatever, he's basically one of the last things we care about as football fans, but he's really talented still in his old age. Shy Tuttle stiff-armed Matt Ryan after he ended up with the ball on defense, and that's just absolutely amazing. It's awesome to see a quarterback get thrown to the ground on a stiff arm. It's hard to say a lot about these guys because there's a ton of play. There's a ton of, I don't even want to say that because there's not a ton of playmakers on this team. There's a decent amount of playmakers, but that decent amount of playmakers is all making plays so consistently that it's insane, and they get a lot of big plays through all of the same guys. So it's obviously Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, a little bit of Latavius Murray once Kamara was off the field, Jared Cook, Taysom Hill, Michael Thomas, and just because of Deontay Harris's ability to return the ball so well, I will also throw him on that list. It seems like it's all those same guys over and over again, but it blends well together, and they're able to put up a lot of points with that. The Vikings game at home, really, all I have to say about that is why'd they wear the white jerseys at home? Why did they wear their white jerseys at home? And then why did they wear the white jerseys that aren't even the best looking white jerseys that they have at home in that playoff game? If there's a reason they lost that playoff game, that's probably why. Honestly, right there. Okay, now let's talk about some stats. Michael Thomas broke the receptions record for a single season with 149. Like Devontae Parker said, he got 1 billion targets last season, so that's not shocking. But he did do it. Impressive. Very good player. Also, Alvin Kamara managed to get targeted 97 times while only starting 9 games last year. That's insane. That's crazy. 97 targets in 9 games. I think he caught 81 of those. Um, who knows if he started all 16 games? Maybe both of them would have broken the receptions record. 16.4 yards per reception for Jared Cook was the best on the team. Also, a key thing to point out because, I mean, Jared Cook's the big playmaker on this team. Obviously, when you think New Orleans Saints football, you think big play Jared Cook, obviously. Okay, now let's talk about some defensive stats. Marcus Williams had 4 interceptions. Marcus Davenport forced 3 fumbles. Von Bell had 5 fumble recoveries. Fumble recoveries are kind of random, but I mean, that's positioning and stuff, and it seemed like he was playing well. 15.5 sacks for Cam Jordan. 111 tackles for Demario Davis. Second on the team was Von Bell. Third on the team was A.J. Klein. Don't have their numbers in front of me, but just kind of important to mention that. Demario Davis and Jordan, being Cam Jordan, had double-digit tackles for loss. Huge. Just same guys making plays on the defense side of the ball, it seems like. Key injuries for the team. Alex Anzalone, Drew Brees, Andrews Pete, and Alvin Kamara missed decent chunks of the season, but nothing crazy. And other than that, it was either guys getting like 1-game injuries or anyone who had more significant time missed were lesser-known players. This team, even though it was their starting quarterback and their starting running back, really got lucky when it came to the injury bug. Not many important injuries to this team. Anzalone, Drew Brees, Andrews Pete, and Kamara missing decent chunks, but nothing crazy, like I said. So, injury bug was lucky last year. I think my favorite part about doing this basically like team prediction thing for every team so far is that I have found out about players that I really was like, I didn't know were playing well for teams before. And then I find out that they're playing well for a team, and I'm like, wow, this guy's good. I can't wait to see how he does next season. But I also find out that he's moving to another team. And I say that because the best example of it so far, it has happened in the past, but the best example of it so far is me watching all these plays from last season from the New Orleans Saints being like, holy cow, this Von Bell guy, wow, he's playing well. Like, what's he going to do next season? Well, Von Bell is now a Cincinnati Bengal, and he's leaving. So that transitions us into who they lost. So they lost Von Bell, Teddy Bridgewater, A.J. Klein, Eli Apple. Eli Apple, probably not a huge loss there. The other guys, however, A.J. Klein, third on the team in tackles. Von Bell, second on the team in tackles, also a big playmaker on defense. So I think those are 2 key losses. Also, Teddy Bridgewater left. I don't mind the Teddy Bridgewater leaving thing because he obviously got paid big money by Carolina to go be their starting quarterback, so it makes sense that the Saints aren't going to pay him for basically no reason there. But yeah, it made sense. Plus, with who they gained, I like who they gained though. They gained Malcolm Jenkins. Okay, they're replacing Von Bell at safety. But the thing is, you're replacing the 25-year-old safety who just came off a really good year with a 32-year-old safety in Malcolm Jenkins to a 4-year deal. Don't know how you're expecting him to play through his age 36 season at a high level, but you are. And you're just like, yeah, this makes sense. Not to mention, I think Malcolm Jenkins is getting paid more per season than Von Bell is getting paid per season in Cincinnati. I can't say that for sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what I saw earlier. I didn't write it down, so I can't be sure, though. Also, they signed Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders is huge. That's a good signing. There's no doubt about that. Now he's been on 3 teams already. This is his 4th team now, which is kind of crazy. Because basically, he's in Pittsburgh, and then he was in Denver for a long time, but he was in San Francisco at the end of last season, which was not long at all. It's really weird for you to be on a team for that short period of time, but he went to the Super Bowl. Don't know how they'll feel about that, but he's a very good player. He'll definitely help out the passing offense, so maybe he can become one of those weapons in that group of like 6 players that I said are the ones that are consistently making plays, and I'm sure he will be one of those guys. So that'll be huge for them to have this repertoire of weapons to spread the field out and never know where Drew Brees is going with the ball. Also, Marcus Hunt added. I I don't really know much about Marcus Hunt. I think I've heard he's played pretty decently in the past, but honestly don't know much about him. Jameis Winston comes in. I think Jameis Winston may be the perfect backup for Drew Brees. And if Jameis Winston, if Drew Brees, he's old, obviously he could go down at some point again this season. Even if Jameis Winston comes in and he isn't playing well, I definitely think that Taysom Hill could at least do enough to win him some games when Drew Brees is out if Jameis Winston isn't really doing well. But I like the contract they gave Jameis. It makes sense. Drew Brees, 2 more years. I think Jameis is on a 1-year deal. It just fits for both parties at this time. And Jameis Winston may actually be able to flourish under Sean Payton if he gets any time on the field. That's the fun with preseason. I mean, geez, the Saints are going to be a pretty fun team to watch in preseason because all their quarterbacks are pretty fun. They even drafted a guy who would be pretty fun to watch in preseason. So then they also gained Ty Montgomery and Anthony Chickillo. Anthony Chickillo, not a guy I know a lot about, but Ty Montgomery, a running back that they definitely could, running back slash receiver. I mean, just another weapon for them to throw on the field. I like that. Makes sense. And I just really want to reiterate that the fact that they let go of Von Bell for Malcolm Jenkins to come back. I realized that he was a Saint before, and it's like, oh my gosh, he's returning to our team. This is so cool, but it just overall that was the wrong decision. Just keep Von Bell and let Malcolm Jenkins find some other team to go to. I didn't like that at all. But now we can talk about their draft picks. First round, 24th overall, they grabbed the center from Michigan in Cesar Ruiz. Ruiz, actually a very young player. I found out he's only 20 years old, but he's a really high graded player by Pro Football Focus. He allowed, I think they said, only 10 pressures last season, and that seems pretty good because I looked at more analysis on them drafting this guy, and I heard that the interior line was a big issue in the playoff game against Minnesota. It's kind of surprising because you think of Minnesota last season and they have those two great edge players, or they just have that good edge play in general. And apparently Minnesota was beating them up in the interior, so grabbing an interior guy on offense to help him out makes sense. Zach Bond, good linebacker. I don't think he'll be great, but it's definitely a good replacement because A.J. Klein, once again, third leading tackler on the team last season, needs to be replaced, and it makes sense that they go linebacker in the third round. Also, really weird that the Saints only have 4 total picks in this draft. So they've got that first round pick, that third round pick that they take Zach Bond. Then they have another third round pick, and they pick a guy here who I was really interested in. Adam Troutman, a tight end from Dayton. He's a really tall guy, but he doesn't look too big. He's 6'6", and he was a lower level college player, but he's tall. Could bulk up a little bit, but his his catching ability and his agility are also really impressive. So I'm excited to see what he does because whenever you get a really talented small guy school, you never know how he's going to for sure turn out. So that was their second, third round pick. And then they had a 7th round pick, and they take a guy by the name of Tommy Stevens out of Mississippi State. And Stevens is a tall QB. He's kind of skinny. But he's like an option quarterback, and he runs with a little bit of power. Not crazy power, but he runs with a little bit of power, using his size to his advantage. And don't really know what they're doing here. Maybe they're just looking for more quarterbacks to bring out of college to just use as like Swiss Army knife Taysom Hill guys. Just get as many of those on the roster as we possibly can. If we've got guys that can do a ton of things, then that's a good thing. So now, let's talk about who the Saints have to play this year. So, my favorite place to start is with the division rivals and all those 6 games. So, Tampa Bay, Carolina, Atlanta twice. I think they could beat Carolina twice. Now, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, good opponents. I don't know how they'll do it, but and like I said earlier, even when one team comes into an NFC South game that seems to be bad, one team comes into an NFC South game, seems to be good. Seems like those games are the games that really end up staying close, if not going the other way from how you see them. So I think these NFC South games are pretty interesting games, and I definitely don't think they're going to win all of them. So whether that's 5-1 in division, I'm actually going to say that they'll go 4-2 in the division. So 4-2 in the division. Then we've got to talk about more teams that are coming to New Orleans to play them. So Kansas City coming to New Orleans. That'll be a tough game. That'll be an interesting game. And with what's going on with Drew Brees, I'm really gonna lean towards the side that the team is gonna end up being okay with him, but I definitely could also see the possibility that they get really upset with him. I guess I'll talk about the two games that are the home teams they'll play that I think they'll beat. The Los Angeles Chargers coming to town and the Green Bay Packers. I know the Packers were in the NFC Championship game last year, but I really don't have a ton of faith in the Packers coming to a place like New Orleans and winning. So I'll give them 2 W's there. So that takes their 4-2 record up to a 6-2 record. Now let's talk about these other teams they've got to play at home. Kansas City's coming to town, Minnesota's coming to town, and San Francisco's coming to town. Kansas City, San Fran, both in the Super Bowl last year. Minnesota, the team that knocked them out of the playoffs. That's pretty tough. I like New Orleans as a football team, but I think actually with Minnesota losing Stephon Diggs, I think I'll actually say that they can beat Minnesota, move to 7-2. But if I'm giving them the games against Los Angeles, which Los Angeles should be an easy game, and I'm giving them the games against Green Bay and Minnesota, which really aren't as easy as I'm saying they are, I'm going to say they're going to drop to Kansas City and drop to San Francisco at home. And that's without talking about any other out-of-the-division road games. So that is 4-2, moved them up to 6-2, 7-2, and then they dropped those 2 games. Now we're at 7-4. We've got 5 games left to go on the road. 7-4 doesn't sound too good, but let's see who they've got to play on the road. So, they've got to go to Denver. I think that'll be a tough game. I really like the Broncos' outlook on this season. But I'll take the Saints in that one. So, 8-4. Las Vegas Raiders. Once again, I'm not going to say much about the Raiders. I don't think they'll be much better. I'll put them at 9-4. Now we've got 3 games left. Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions, and Philadelphia Eagles. Ooh. You know, I'm gonna say Chicago and Detroit. Chicago and Detroit will probably actually both be better than last year, because if Matt Stafford plays a whole season, Detroit's a heck of a lot better team. And Chicago also probably better with Nick Foles than Mitch Trubisky leading the helm. But I still have confidence in the Saints here, so I'm going to say the Saints win those 2 games. Going to Philadelphia, however. Just because of the way I feel this team is up in the air. I probably would pick the Saints any other year with this exact same roster to win a lot more games. But if there's any up in the airness with that weird Drew Brees situation that definitely didn't need to arise if he would have just said the right things and said Black Lives Matter instead of what he initially said, then I definitely think they'll lose some more games this year than they should. So I'm going to say they're going to drop to Philadelphia too. And I think that puts us at an 11-5 record prediction for the New Orleans Saints. Like I said, probably, realistically, normally, this roster with who they've got to play, more like a 13-3, 14-2 team, because they're a really, really talented team. But this season, just with what's transpired so far, and really they do have some good competition they're going to have to play, I think I'm going to bet that the Saints will go 11-5, and that'll be my final record prediction for these guys this year. So yeah. So, if you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching.
2020 president candidate.